to hit the record button. All right, everybody, welcome to class number 7 of Get Up to Speed Training. It's a wonderful day here in California. I hope that those of you who are able to attend last week's class, we went over the RPA, real estate purchase contract, and some tips and strategies on filling them out and how to do it correctly and how to make sure you ask for what you want to ask for and protect the interest of your buyer is the one you're filling it out. When we get to the part of presenting offers to sellers, we'll talk about the RPA again and show little things that as a seller, as an agent for the seller, you want to make sure the seller is aware of and understands when they accept an offer or counter an offer. So we'll talk about that coming up shortly. But tonight, class 7, sellers. I hope you've printed off the worksheet. And again, if anybody's looking on this online later and you'd like the worksheet, you can email me at ronb, R-O-N-B as in Bentley, at equity-usa.com, and I'll be glad to email you any of the worksheets for any of these classes. Great. So let's start with welcome everybody, and let's go to sellers. How exactly do we find them? Well, actually, how we find them is not much different than the way that we find them when we're working with buyers. They're kind of one and the same. Working for buyers is also looking for sellers. So some of the things we do, take a look at your sphere of influence. Using your, and the blank there would be your database. So if you want to fill in that blank, database. We've talked about rating your people 1 through 4, A through D, whatever you're thinking about doing. But all of them are good for finding both buyers and sellers. Number one way to find buyers and sellers is your sphere of influence, past clients, staying in contact with them in your database. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Let me go over here. Yeah, I think it's right. Nope, wrong mail. I'm going to go over here and pull up something. I should have thought of this first. I just thought of it as we were going along. We'll go back over here for now while it waits to load up. There's the main screen, and here's this little screen right there. This page we're working on. So influence of sphere of influence using your database. Let me go over here real quick. And by the way, any of you that are working with equity real estate, that if you want a company email address, all you have to do is contact the front desk, and you can get them at agent relations at equity-usa.net and ask them for an email address, and they'll send it to you. So this is what one of our agents just sent me today, that they found this place that does boxes. They're splitting the cost with a lender, and they'll be printed, sent out to him, and he's doing like 300 of them for like $165, splitting the cost with the lender. They're going to fill it with Jolly Ranchers and take it around a neighborhood there. So there you go. That's a great little idea. How to stay in contact with one of your areas that you're working. He's doing this not a one-time thing, but as part of his ongoing farming of a neighborhood. We'll talk about that again here in a minute, what that really means. So sphere of influence using your database. Farming. Again, what is farming? Well, just kind of like if a farmer was working his farm, he's working a specific plot of ground. In farming and real estate, you're working a specific neighborhood or area, and you're hitting it over and over and over again. Farming does not work if you hit it once. It doesn't necessarily work if you hit it twice. This is a commitment to a long-term process, but in the long run, it works. It always has worked. It's worked from the 60s. It works today. Door hangers, postcards mailed there, neighborhood market updates. All those things work if you hit the same geographic area over and over and over again. You will find buyers and sellers. Open houses and circle prospecting. A few weeks ago, we talked about the Power Open House, where what you do as part of the open house is knock doors around the neighborhood to find out who would be interested in selling in the future. I personally did this about 2 weekends ago. Came across 2 people that gave me exactly their criteria for selling their houses and moving. I made note of it, took down their names and addresses and phone numbers and email addresses, and now they're in my database, and I'll be talking with them and trying to find. One of them is just I need to find another particular piece of property for them, which I don't think will be too hard. The other one is when the house gets to a certain value. It's not there yet, but when it gets there, trust me, I will be calling her and saying, okay, your house is at that value. Are you ready to sell now? Bingo, I got a seller. She's going to move out of state. I got a referral to somebody in that state. For sale by owners. For sale by owners are a great source of listings if you again know what to say to them and how to work them. Expired listings. In the paperwork I've sent you today, there's some dialogues, and we'll talk a little bit about how to work with expired listings, how to get them. These are easy because these are people who already tried to sell, and for some reason, the house didn't. Now, 90% of the time, it is the fact that the seller was asking too much money. It normally is a product of the price, not everything else. They think their agent didn't work, didn't do enough open houses, didn't do enough marketing, yada, yada, yada. It really came down to price. Because nowadays, if you put it in the MLS and your brokerage is any good, you're pushing it out to hundreds of websites, at least 100 websites. Everybody can find your house. Why didn't it sell? The photos weren't good or the price was not good. That's really about it. Okay. In fact, NAR checks and says 88% of all homes sell with a professional real estate agent, which means 88% of all FSBOs will list with an agent eventually. The only question is which one of the ones out there are going to list. So we're going to talk about that. Expireds, again, most of them will relist. The only question is when. And of course, wearing your name badge. I will tell you that you should always be wearing, whenever you're out in public, you should be wearing a name badge. People will talk to you. They'll come up and ask you questions. And of course, if you've taken one of my other classes, you know that I don't hand them my phone number or my business card. When they ask me for a business card, I kind of pat my pockets and say, oh, I don't have one. For you ladies, you're going to look quickly in your purse or wallet and say, oh, I don't seem to have one with me. Even if you do, you say, I don't have one with me, but let me get your name and number. And you pull out a piece of paper and you look down at the paper and say, let me have your name, and your phone number. Don't ask for email first. Once they give you the email, they will not give you the phone number. So remember, always ask for phone number first. Name and phone number. And the secret to getting it is once you look down at the piece of paper, you're looking at the paper and you do not look up. Because if you look up, they can send you that nonverbal message that I really am uncomfortable giving you my name and phone number. But if you're looking down, ready to write, and you're just waiting for them to talk, eventually they'll talk and they'll give you their name and number. Now, most of them are going to give it to you freely because you've been talking about it, but every now and then you find someone that been talking with you, and all of a sudden they go like, oh my gosh, I'm telling them, gee, they wanted to actually stay in contact with me. Best way to get it is pull up a piece of paper, phone, and say, give me your name and your number, and just look down and don't look up until they give it to you. They'll give it to you every single time. So, by the way, here's a little number. For sale by owners actually only sell, depending on where you're at, 6 to 10% less than homes that are listed. So that's, in most of California, if they're doing 6% less, they could have paid us for the 5% and still got 1% more. Or over here, they could have got 5% more. So, they just don't know that. They think they can do it themselves, particularly in a seller's market. They think they don't need the real estate agent winning. They really do. And there's a lot of laws in California of things they need to disclose. And they're really doing themselves a disservice because if they don't disclose everything properly, sorry, my dog just heard the front door. But if they don't disclose everything properly, they could be sued by the buyer later. We're going to talk about how to work with a for sale by owner now. One of the things I will tell you is don't give them all the paperwork they need to avoid this lawsuit. They'll ask you for help. There's certain things you can do to help. Giving them this paperwork is not one of them. Okay? So let's talk about how do we actually help a for sale by owner to work our way in. Well, first of all, don't be trying to get too many, because getting a for sale by owner to list with you is not a one-time effort. It's not a one-time talk with them and, hey, done. You're gonna call them over and over again. This is my favorite way to do it. And I only try to do it on 5 to 10 at a time. It's kind of watching what's happening. I normally work the area that is closest to me. Why? Because this is going to entail some face-to-face visits, as opposed to phone, calling and dropping off emails. But a lot of times it's a face-to-face visit. Therefore, you don't want to be driving, an hour just to talk to one person. You want to keep it in the area that you know, and the area that you work, and the area that is close by, so that the commuting time to do this is easy. My dialogue with them is, hi, I'm Ron Bentley with Equity Real Estate. I work in the area, or I live in this area, and would like to know more about all the homes that are for sale, so that if a buyer asks me about a particular house, I can truthfully tell them about it. Tell me about your house. Okay? Now, this works whether you go to their doorstep or you get them on the phone. Now, a lot of times on the phone, they want to get you off the phone because you're just an agent. They figure you're just looking for a listing. Okay? So I actually prefer to do this first visit, face to face. Have my name tag on, have my business card in my pocket, my paper and my pencil to make some notes, but I don't walk up loaded for bear. I do not go up trying to get the listing today. Tell me about your house. At this point, you'll listen to what they have to say, ask a few questions to make sure you have the pertinent facts. And, one of the things I say to them is, by the way, if I had a buyer for your home, would you be willing to pay me just and of course I'm going to name whatever the commission rate is in your area, because we have agents from other companies on here. Sherman Antitrust says I can't actually name a specified rate at this time. So you're going to recommend, whatever the standard rate for a buyer's agent is in your area. So if I had a buyer for your home, would you be willing to pay me this? 95% of the time, they're willing to pay an agent that has a buyer. What they're trying to do is avoid the listing side of the commission. If they say yes to that question, and I still, they've told me about the house, but I haven't walked through it, then I say, I guess the only thing left for me to know is if it's right for one of my buyers is to be able to see the house. When would be a convenient time to see the house? If I'm standing on the doorstep, most sellers eventually say, well, why don't you just come in right now and take a look at it? But if I'm doing it on the phone, we're going to set a time. I'm going to come by and see the house. Okay? So I'm asking information about the house. I'm asking if by the way, would you pay me a buyer's commission of blank percent if I had a buyer for the house? And I guess the only thing left to know if it's right for my buyer is for me to be able to see the house. And when would be a convenient time for me to see your house? Then you go to see the house. Now, it's very important what you do when you're in the house. This, again, is not a listing presentation. You're not going to list their house at this moment. You're just going to show interest in the house. They're going to show you features. When you walk into a room, you might say, oh, this is a very nice room. How do you use this room? If it's not evident, oh, it's a bedroom, this is a kitchen, but, oh, you have a fireplace in here. Do you guys use that very often? One of the things I might say as I'm going through the house, by the way, tell me anything that you think is really a neat feature about the house so I can tell a potential buyer about that. And I just walk through and I let them show me everything they want to show me. I don't give hints. I don't tell them what to do if they're listing the house. I don't tell them stuff they need to do to make it sell faster unless they specifically ask me, by the way, do you think I should paint this room if it's an obnoxious color? And at that point, because they asked directly a question, I will say, well, yeah, you might want to consider having that painted to a more acceptable color. Okay? Because you can't lie to them now and say, oh, no, that paint color is fine. And then come back to list the house and say, oh, by the way, you need to paint that room. Well, wait a minute. Weren't you the agent who told me I didn't need to paint the room? Isn't that why I called you? Because you said I didn't need to? Every other agent said I needed to paint the room. So, again, we always owe the duty of honesty and fairness to every client, whether they're our listing or our actual buyer. So you got to tell them the truth. I don't run around the house saying, oh, you got to move this, please move that, do that, if I'm not listing the house. I save that for when I'm listing the house. But if they specifically ask, should I do something? Of course, I'm going to say yes. That would be a great idea. And if you can tell they don't know what color to paint it, you might even want to say, hey, let me help you pick a color. Go down to the hardware store, pick out a paint swatch that goes with their carpet, and say, here, try this one. One of the best ways to do that is ask the people at the desk, and whether it's at a Sherwin-Williams or a Vista Paint or wherever you're getting the paint from, or a Lowe's, or what color do you see the most of right now? And they'll tell you, especially at like the professionals places, the Vista Paint, the Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore. They have the professionals coming in. They'll tell you exactly what colors are most popular right now. Okay, so some of the questions you might ask just to find out their motivation is, where are you moving to? What is your time frame for making that change? Have you found a home yet? You're going to ask some questions, listen for the answers. At the most, you acknowledge them by saying, oh, okay, great. Leave your card, and when you go home that night, send a thank you note that very day. Hey, thank you very much for taking the time to show me your house. I'll be looking for buyers in your neighborhood, and when I find one that's right for your house, I'll be in contact. Something like that. Something just basic. Thank you very much. Throw your card in there. Mail the thank you note out again. You're going to call in 4 days. Why 4 days? Well, mainly because if you've been there and sent a thank you note, if I mail it tonight, it's being picked up tomorrow, and then it's going to be, since it's local, it'll be delivered the next day. That's 3 days. So the 3 days, so 4 or 5 days into it, I'm going to call them and say, hey, I'm just checking to see how is it going. Have you got a buyer for your house yet? And then one of the things I always ask is, by the way, how many agents have called trying to list your house? And they'll tell you. They'll go, oh man, we get agents all day long. By the way, this is one of the reasons why I like to do this in person, because most agents are not coming to their door. They're calling them. With expired listings and for sale by owners, I like to do the first meeting in person if at all possible, because no one else is doing that. Everybody else is calling them, and they're all using the same dialogues. In fact, I've had sellers say to me, why is it that every agent says the exact same thing? I said, oh, because they're all using a script that tells them this is what you say to get the listing. Now, I'm not telling them that I'm actually using a script and a plan myself, but I tell them what everybody else is doing. They're all using a script, okay? Making them think, without me ever saying it, that I'm actually being genuine, which I am, but I do have a plan. I do have a script, okay? Some of the things I might do, I might stop by with them. We have some materials that are very good to use. I get them from title companies. Some of them are, tips for sellers. Ask your local favorite title company if they have something that you could give to a for sale by owner to help them. One of the things I always start with is something from a title company, because I might stop by the next time and say, oh, by the way, when you do get a buyer, you're going to have someone do title and escrow. And here, let me give you the cards of some of my favorite people. Okay? So I hand them to them. And then one time I might give them some names and numbers of a few home inspectors. Because your buyer's going to want to have home inspection, and if they're buying for sale by owner, they typically aren't using an agent either, so they'll need to know where to find a good home inspector. Here's a name and number for that. I do not give them the seller's mandatory by law transfer disclosure statement. I don't give them the supplementary ones. I don't give them San Diego land local disclosures. I don't give them the mandatory by law forms, because that's what I'm there for. First of all, many of these are CAR forms, so they They're copyrighted, which means a seller or a buyer are actually prohibited by law from using them. So don't just hand them to them. You're devaluing yourself by giving those things, but handing useful information like a title or a loan. Hey, by the way, when a buyer, comes by, they don't have a loan officer here. Send them to my friend, Bruce, or send them to my friend Constance, or whatever. That's a good thing to do. One thing I found is tell them where the best prices for moving boxes is. I don't know if it still is, but it used to be Home Depot. They had killer prices. And so tell them, by the way, you're going to be packing, so you might want to, check out the prices down at Home Depot. So I stopped by, I called them, I stopped by. I'm going to wait another 4 or 5 days and call them again and ask them how it's doing. On this appointment, this is my 4th contact with them. I'm going to ask them, if I haven't asked them already, if they're planning to interview agents in the future. And if yes, can I be on that list? At this point, I've never had anybody say, no, I can't be on that list, because I've been the only helpful one through this process. Most of them come out and are blatantly trying to get a listing. I'm trying to be a little helpful first. Okay. Remember the old saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I show them that I care, then they want to know about what I know. Additional questions that you have to ask at any time. How much do you need from the sale of this home to buy the next one? You might find out that even at a reduced price, they don't have enough money to go do what they want to do. So you may want to find out what they owe and what they need on the house, from the proceeds to sell. Here's another thing. What would you do? What would it do to your plans if you couldn't sell the home at the price that you've indicated? You want to find out if they're planning on renting it, because that'll tell you right away too. They're probably not going to list, because if they are fine, I can still do what I need to do, even if I rent this house. Then you're probably not getting a listing. Okay, and that might be one you want to scratch off and add something else onto the list. And again, as a reminder, you can always just unmute yourself and ask a question live, or you can type it into the chat box if you want to send me a message. But seeing none, we're going to continue. So, any questions so far about working with for sale by owners? Have any of you worked with for sale by owners before, or tried to work with for sale by owners before? Okay, how many? Let me ask this. How many of you think you might want to work with a for sale by owner, or try this with for sale by owners in the future? Okay. The thing I would tell you to do is get materials together. Go talk to your title company, talk to your lender, saying I'm going to start a campaign for sale by owners. Can you have something that I could give them a value, to help them, and start putting together, get 10 of everything, and so you can go out and start doing it. Where do you find the for sale by owners? Driving around. We have through Equity under Arch Agent, we have a place that you can go in there and sign up for and get a list of all the for sale by owners in your area, and that's absolutely free to the Equity agents. So you don't have to go searching all over the place. Just keep an eye out for them as you drive around your neighborhood and your area. That's a great source of getting new listings. Here's something I learned a long time ago, and it's been a very important factor for me when working with for sale by owners or expireds, or working with anybody and in negotiating. Fear of loss is greater than the fear of gain. Think about that. The fear of loss is greater than the fear of or hope for a gain. A lot of people won't do what's in their best interest because it may be a risk, but they're comfortable where they're at. But if they are going to be, it's going to hurt them, they will move. So a fear of loss is always more motivating than the dangling of a gain. You got to find out what they fear. To get them thinking about listing with you, try the following. So if I had a way of making sure that you can sell, or that whatever they fear did or didn't happen, would you consider working with me? Okay. Well, I just don't want a bunch of people walking through my house, and I don't want to get tied up with a bad agent. So if I had a way to make sure that you didn't work with a bad agent and that you could cancel at any time, so you're not tied up, would you consider working with me? I need to put a question mark on that, don't I? I just noticed a typo on my own paperwork. There we go. So that's something. Find out what's their issue. Most people that are doing for sale by owners just don't. They've had a bad experience with a real estate agent before. Bottom line, they've had a bad experience with a real estate agent, and they don't know a good one, so they're going to try it themselves. And they're also greedy. But if it's not happening for them, that's their fear of loss. Remember, it's not happening. We can't seem to get this done. We're just not getting anywhere. Okay. Well, how are you going to get moving forward? I'm going to have somebody come and do this for me. As the market turns, and we talked last week a little bit about the fact that I do believe there's a shift in the market going on. The crazy market we had of last year and early and most of this year is slowing down. It is not turning into a bad market. It's turning into what I call a normal market, where neither the buyer nor the seller have an advantage. There is a little bit of a slowdown because we're within 60 days of the election. Typically happens on an election year. It doesn't stop all people, but there's a few that it stops. But that's not going to, no matter who wins the White House, whatever party wins, it's not going to throw the real estate market into a tizzy. Interest rates rising will be the thing that does it. But the fact is, you're going to see an increase in the number of houses for sale come next spring, and you'll see the days on market become a little longer. That's my crystal ball projection for next year. It will not be a big downturn. Prices will adjust just a little bit, but not dramatically. When I say adjust, I mean they'll go down. So pricing your home for sale by owner is going to be more critical than ever. Some of the things I ask them when I'm visiting with them sometimes is, by the way, how did you happen to come up with this price? You may want to write that one down. By the way, how did you happen to come up with your list price? They'll tell you, well, we watched the one around the corner and we saw this and over, there, and then you can go back and check and find out, well, they took what that house was listed for, but not what it sold for. So then when you come back in the future, you can say, oh, by the way, you told me you listed it based on the house around the corner, and it actually didn't sell at that price. It sold at this price. That's what they listed it for. Well, that's why we're listed that way. Yeah, but it didn't sell that way, and now the market's turning a little bit more in favor of buyers. So, again, I'm going to save that that kind of conversation till I've been there 3 or 4 or 5 times, and they're actually talking with me and now about listing the house. So, a few more facts about basic human behavior. People like to work with people they know and are comfortable with. So your objective in these first few meetings is to get them to be comfortable with you, get them to like you. Okay, it is not to list their house in the first meeting or two. Now, overall, your goal is to get that, but in the first meeting or two, you want them to like you and be comfortable with you. Remember that people love to buy, but they don't want to be sold. That is really critical. That is why when you walk into a department store knowing exactly what you're looking for, and the salesman walks up to you and say, can I help you find something, or is there something you're looking for? Instinctively, we say no, even though I know exactly what I'm looking for. Our built-in mechanism is to say no. Why? Because we want to buy. We don't want to be sold. We're afraid they're actually going to sell us something. By the way, if you ever want to see the weirdest reaction in your life is when anybody in a department store comes up and says, hey, can I help you find something? You say, yes, I'm looking for exactly this, and tell them what you're looking for. They're really I've had people go like, the reaction is like, whoa, they actually said yes because they've probably been there on shift for 5 hours and no one has said yes to them yet. That's why they always ask you the question no matter what you say. They walk away, and if you stick around in the department for more than 2 minutes, they come back and ask you again. Anyways, people like to buy, they don't want to be sold. So you want to be helpful so that they almost get to the point of saying, will you list my house? That's what I'm talking about in this instance. You want them to want you. People expect quick results from almost everything. Most will not have the patience for the real process of showing and selling a home. That's another human behavior. Most people want something quickly. They're not in it for the long haul. As the market changes, it's going to take patience to get houses sold. They need someone to hold their hand. That's going to be you. Most people think they can do it and then find out that they really can't. That's another thing. I remember my mechanic had it at his on his garage. He had his hourly rate, and it was like 50% higher if you've already started the process yourself and didn't finish it. In other words, don't try it yourself. Just bring it to me up front. People are going to try this themselves, and if they make it, great. And if they don't, they're going to list with somebody. The question is, who is it going to be? Is it going to be you? I remember I had one teacher or trainer teach me about for sale by owners. He took it as a personal affront to his ability to do the job. He goes, I hate someone saying that they can do my job better than me and that they don't need me doing my job. And he took it personal. Hey, whatever your motivation is, I just do it because I need listings. I constantly need listings and I want to get listings. So I'm going to go talk to people that are trying to do it for sale by owner. When you finally sit down to list their house, let's talk a little bit about strategy, about just meeting with them. I've had many people ask me, was it one meeting to first go see the house? And this is maybe one that just called you and say, come list my house, or you haven't been in the house before. One meeting or two. And my answer to that is really, I've lived in areas that are all subdivisions. All the houses are the same. Track after track after track. And so I can go into a neighborhood and the builder has built 100 of the same floor plan. And, I can go in the MLS and find the last sale or listings of the last 6 of them that are the exact same square footage, exact same criteria. If I'm in that kind of environment, one meeting, I can do my homework before I go and just show up and give the whole presentation. If they're a place where there's more smaller neighborhoods, the builder built 10 to 15 homes, and then there's open fields, and then there's small neighborhoods, or it's built a long time ago, inner city, and each home is unique. Well, then you want to go maybe do 2. First one is to go see the house. The second one is to come back with all your comparables. While you're in your meeting, before you get to showing your comparables, we want to ask a few questions again. If we haven't done it already, you need to know why they are moving. The blank there is moving. Okay. Now they may have told you before, but sometimes when I come back, it's been, 30, 45 days since we started talking to the for sale by owners. They've had me come back. I'll say now just to make sure I remember correctly, how soon, why are you moving? Tell me again why you're moving. That's right. Your job transfer to Baltimore, Maryland. Got it. And how soon, do you have to be there, or when do you have to be there? So that'd be number 2. When do you have to be there? And if you haven't talked about it, if it hasn't been listed, or it's not a for sale by owner, but you're just listing it, then what do you think your home would sell for? Or if it's been a for sale by owner, why do you think your house hasn't sold? And again, if I haven't asked this before, if I can't get that price, what will you do with the house? Find out the renting it. What are we checking for with all these questions? What are each one of those questions designed to find out? Well, it's real simple. Motivation. We want to find out their motivation. Because with a motivated person, I can do all sorts of stuff. I can use their desire to get the job done. If they are not motivated, if they say they'll just rent the house, and if they insist on too high of a price, my answer to them is, you know what? That doesn't work for me, but I can give you the name and number of somebody who specializes in not selling overpriced listings. And you may laugh at that, but I've actually used that line. I've actually given cards out. In fact, I used to carry around cards of 2 or 3 people that were just rude, obnoxious, pushy agents, and I would hand their card out to people. And they would call those people and say, hey, Ron Bentley told me that you might be the right person to list my house, you know. And sometimes, every now and then, I've had them talk to those people and they call me back and say, no, Ron, we want you. And now they found out what a really obnoxious agent is like. Okay? It works. But be prepared for the fact that they might actually get the listing and you won't. Probably still good, because if they're not motivated and they're gonna overprice it, you want to be the second agent in, not the first one. Okay? Any questions about working with sellers, listing their home? Some of the questions to check their motivation. Any questions at all? Okay, we're going through this class pretty quickly because we don't have any questions. Again, if you think of a question, just pipe up or text it to me real quick, and I will do what I can to answer your questions. Expired listings. What are expired listings? Just to be sure, they're houses that have previously been listed by another agent which did not sell. Their listing has expired. It's either been canceled, withdrawn, and then expired. But as soon as it expires, it's free for you to contact them. By the way, let me say this about calling these people. You should always check with the National Do Not Call list to see if they're on that list. Even though they were listed before, doesn't mean that you can call them. You're actually prohibited if they're on the Do Not Call list. For sale by owners, you're allowed to call them while they're listed, while they're saying for sale by owner. But if they ask you not to contact them by phone, then you have to stop contacting them by phone. Okay? That's why I also like the in-person, because there is no national do not knock on my door registry. There's no place that they can go and say, I don't want people knocking on my door. If they say no soliciting, that's okay. I'm going to ignore it because they're an expired or for sale by owners. On the other hand, while I am walking a neighborhood, if they say no soliciting, I then just hang a door hanger, but I do not knock on the door. Now, later, if I'm walking the neighborhood and they happen to be out front, and I start up a conversation with them, then I didn't knock on the door. And again, I kind of remember which ones say no soliciting. I start the conversation with more, hey, do you know anybody in the neighborhood that is thinking about buying or selling a house? As opposed to if they say, well, I don't want anybody soliciting. I go like, well, I didn't solicit you. I'm not asking you if you want to do it. I'm asking if you know anybody else in the neighborhood who wants to do it. And I've had a few people get a chuckle out of that, and they go, no, don't know anybody. And then I move on. Always be respectful of people. Never argue with them, never debate them. You're just trying to get on their good side, not their bad side. So I like to do this in person, but for an expired listing, they are getting bombarded with people calling them, by the way. And they all use pretty much a variation of these scripts or some others. I mean, you can get scripts from, Tom Ferry, Mike Ferry, his dad, Brian Buffini. There's scripts from everybody. Tommy Hopkins, everybody, Floyd Wickman, they all have dialogues for going there. I'm giving you a few right here that seem to work for me. Again, I prefer to do it in person. I'm sure you know by now that, after I introduce myself up there, I'm sure you know by now that your listing has expired, and you're probably getting a lot of calls from agents promising that they can sell your home. I have just 2 questions. One is, do you still need to sell your home? And 2, when will you be interviewing agents? Getting right to the point. Finding out their motivation. Nope, you know what? We decided we're not going to sell it this time. Okay. I might go along. Now, I'm not going to go with the next few questions here, but I might say something like, can you tell me why you think your house didn't sell? Now they're going to say, well, the agent didn't work hard enough, or didn't do this, or didn't do that. They're never going to say, well, we had a price too high. You know, they may say that, but more times than not, they don't. And that's about all I'm going to do with those ones. If they're saying, I might ask them, well, when do you think you might try again? And then, you know, when would be a good time to contact you about being your listing agent? Okay, here's one. Have you already chosen another agent to work with? Okay, they'll tell you right now, yep, we've already got the agent lined up. He's coming over tomorrow night, and we're going to sign the papers with him. At that point, I might say, well, would you like another, comparison of what an agent might do? They say, nope, we're happy with that guy. Okay, fine, move on. But some things, hey, I'm Ron Bentley with Equity Real Estate. I would like to apply for the job of selling your home. See what they say. Here's one. I like this one. I'm sure you already know your listing has expired. While your listing agent was not selling your home, if you have a number of listings, or you can say my company, use your company's listings, sold this number of homes. Can I have 15 minutes to tell you what I or we do to sell your home? So this one, I used to just put the I in there, and everybody goes like, well, I don't have any listings. Okay. Then say we as a company. Okay. So while your home was on the market for the last 90 days and not selling, in that same 90-day period, my company sold, 37 homes. Can I have 15 minutes of time to tell you what we can do to sell your home too? That's a good one. How about this one? When do you plan on interviewing to find the right agent for the job of selling your home? A lot of agents want to get up there, and a lot of the dialogues have to do with, well, are you still interested in selling your house? Because I have a buyer for it. Okay. I don't like that one because you're most likely probably lying, and I do not believe in dishonesty in real estate. Always tell the truth. So I don't like that one for that reason. Also, it sounds like, you just have, you were sitting around waiting for it to expire to do it. We have lots of buyers that are waiting to buy your home. I mean, I would say if I was the seller, well, then why didn't you sell it when it was listed? Okay. Those conversations just put you in a position where you end up defending yourself as opposed to saying, why do you think your home didn't sell? And listening to the objection they have about their agent. And they just told you what they want to hear to list the house. Think about that. What they're telling you the agent didn't do is what they now want to hear you say you're going to do to get the listing. So make a note of that, because when you do finally get in that door, if they say, well, they didn't take really great photographs, or they didn't put it on enough websites, they didn't have a virtual tour, they didn't do enough open houses, you got to think, do I want to do that thing that they complained about? Is that something I'm going to do? And if you are, then be sure to present that when you do your listing presentation, that this is what I'm going to do. This is how I do it. Okay? Because that's what they just told you. This is what we want to hear. Getting listings, if you know what to say, is not that hard. And in fact, we're going to talk about the CMA next week. But then after that, I'm going to actually do a listing presentation for you. I'm going to go on here as if I was the listing agent, you're a seller, and I'm going to go through a sample listing presentation on my PowerPoint on my computer, which kind of shows a few things that we do. You can record it. I'll post the actual PowerPoint slides online for you as well, that you can download them and modify them to what you want them to say. Obviously, you don't want my name on your listing presentation, but I'm going to give you that so you can see what a typical listing presentation might look like. And actually, just to make it more lively and reasonable, I might have someone online or someone here in the room with me to act as a seller and give me some real feedback, so that you can see what a real give and take would be on a listing presentation. Okay. That's kind of it for class 7. So So reviewing again, how do we find buyers? Sellers work in our sphere of influence, which is the number one place to get them. Farming a geographic area, open houses, working for sale by owners. Don't work more than 5 to 10 at a time, depending on how much time you have. If you're part-time, this is a great way to do it. Pick out 2 or 3 that are along the route, not far off the route from your drive from your work back to home. Have the stuff with you when you're coming back home in the afternoon or the evening. Just swing by that house, knock on the door, talk to them. 4 or 5 days later, you're going to call them. 4 or 5 days after that, you're going to stop by the house again. Make it easy on yourself. But that's the way that a lot of people that transition from a full-time job to doing real estate full-time do it by doing, on the weekends, they do all these things. They do a little bit of sphere of influence. They do a little bit of farming in a geographic area. We've talked about that before. They do some open houses from other agents in their office, but they also particularly work for sale by owners or expireds. Again, it's scary the first time you do this, the first few times you do it, because you go like, okay, what am I going to say? Am I really ready? Review the dialogue I gave you in a previous class that has the 6 questions. When in doubt, fall back to them. I may not go right in and say, when do you plan on moving? But I might say like, oh, by the way, how long have you lived here? How did you happen to pick this area? Where did you move from before this area? And where are you planning on moving to? And how soon do you have to be there? Those are questions I would do with a for sale by owner or an expired, talking to somebody with my badge on. Those are great questions to ask them to break the ice and get going. If you haven't done it already, go back to that video or the handouts, get those 6 questions, get these dialogues here, and practice them. Get with your significant other, your kids, even your dog, and ask them these questions. Get them so that they flow off your lips smoothly and professionally, and with real, genuine desire in your voice and in your face. You don't want to do it in a way that it comes off like I'm waiting for you to say something so I can say my next line. Do it naturally. Some of you might remember the actor James Gardner. Great actor. Was in a lot of great movies through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s. Did some television shows too. What's really interesting about James Gardner is he only took 2 days of formal acting classes, thought they were stupid. And when asked how did he go about, what was his style of acting, he said, I know my lines, but I don't act like I'm in a hurry to say them. I let the other the other actor say their line, and then I just react, or as a person saying my line, I act as how they're supposed to say their line. In other words, when you're presenting to someone, even though you know what you're going to say next, don't be in a hurry. React accordingly, as you would as if you heard it for the first time. And if you're saying this is almost like you just came up with this thought and you're delivering it to them the first time you've ever said these words. That's the way you have to do it. So part of the job of a real estate agent is be a little bit of an actor. You just got to deliver the lines that are supposed to be done to move the script along. Let me finish with this one thing. I just used the analogy of acting. Let me say this. I have a lot of agents, when I talk about using a dialogue or a script, they go like, oh, I hate scripts. I don't want to use a dialogue. I can't do. That's just corny. That's just canned. It's not genuine. Okay, let me give you the alternative of this. Using the movie world again as an example. What if a director got together and brought in all the actors he needed and said, okay, I've got this idea for a movie. Boy's going to meet girl, girl's going to meet another boy, girl likes boy 1 and boy 2, and then we got some of her friends that are telling her to like boy 2, some telling boy 1. Boy 1 has a friend that says, why are you chasing this girl when she's obviously going after the other guy? And at the very end, last scene, we want the girl to fall in love with boy 1. Okay, so we tell them the plot and say, okay, I'm just going to film it. You guys start acting. And the actors have no lines, but they're supposed to just ad lib. Well, how long is that movie going to take to film and get it to the right resolution? And will it even ever get there? Of course not. There's a reason why there's a script, even though they allow a little ad libbing and filling in along the way. And as they go along, they may change a line or two to be more appropriate for that exact conversation. When they get there and see the scene and see the dialogue, they go, well, let's change this word here, which I'm saying you can do as a good real estate agent. But the fact is, they know where they're going. They know what the script is. They know at the culmination of this act or this scene, they need to have it ready for the next scene and the next scene and the next scene. That's why we use scripts. It keeps you on target, it keeps you focused, and it keeps you moving towards the desired outcome, which is a seller listing with you, or a buyer committing to working with you, or a buyer saying, let's write an offer. Okay? That's why there's scripts. Do not be one of those people. And I'm saying I was one of them that for the first 4 years of my career, I thought I didn't need a script. And then I found out how powerful scripts really were, and my business took off. Every truly great professional knows what they're going to say next in any environment. It's football season. You know, they don't get everybody in the huddle and the quarterback says, everybody go out and I'll hit you when you're open. They all know exactly where they're going and where they're going to be, and the quarterback knows where to look, because that's how you successfully play the game. When it's a running play, I'm going to hand the ball off to this running back, but he knows where every lineman is supposed to be blocking to make the hole for him. It's planned, it's scripted, it's decided way in advance, because that's how successful people succeed, by knowing the plan and executing the plan. So again, don't be afraid of scripts and dialogues. They will help you. They'll get you there. Any questions before we sign off for the night? Anyone at all? An unusually quiet bunch tonight. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Next week, we're going to talk about the CMA. I will not be talking about how to do a CMA in your exact computer system, because I have agents all over the state using different programs. We will not be talking about them, but I will be talking about a few key ingredients to put into your market analysis to make sure you're prepared for whatever eventuality might come up in your presentation, so that you're ready to win this listing. I'm going to talk about the CMA, and then the next week I will do a listing presentation. So that's week 8 and week 9. Week 10, we'll talk a little bit about listing input, being accurate on that, and we'll also talk about what we talk about with the seller when we have received an offer, how to counter it, how to work the offer, and going back and forth on that. That'll complete our 10 weeks. And then we'll take a small little break for the holidays, and then we will start up again. And again, if anybody has any specific questions about anything, I'm always available and would always be glad to do a specific class on a specific subject that you want to see demonstrated or talked about, so you can get better at it. Always here to help. So, checking again to see if there's any other questions. There are not. I bid you all a fond farewell. You may now go watch the presidential debates. For those that are listening to this on YouTube, we did it the night of the first debate, so I told everybody to record it first, then go watch it. I'm going to go watch it and get some good laughs and watch both of these people make fools of themselves. Anyways, make it a great week. As always, if you have any questions, you may call me, 760-277-7785. Again, that's 760-277-7785. You may email me at ronb@equity-usa.com. That's RONB as in Bentley, at equity-usa.com. You can call, text, email. Try not to do it after 11 o'clock at night, so that the phone doesn't go off and I get up and I go look at it and see what's going on. Anyways, I wish you guys the best. Have a great week. Make it your best week. Go out and try some of these dialogues with a for sale by owner. Get your material together, and by Friday or Saturday, go approach a for sale by owner or two. Your objective is to just find out if you had a buyer, would they pay you? Number one, and number two, preview their home. If you can do those two things, then you have one that you can do all the rest of the steps with. I wish you guys the best. Have a great evening.